360. Holy man. Welcome back to Live What You Love. Today we have an awesome one. I have in front of me the 2026 APA King COBRA DGX, or Dangerous Game Extreme. Now this bow is out of this world. We're gonna run through the specs. We're gonna go way into detail. So buckle up and let's dive in. Bare bow weighs about 4.1 pounds. The axle to axle length is 32 5/16. The brace height is 5 3/8. I know on the website it'll say 5 5/16, but it's 5 3/8 static brace height. The let off is 80%. Where does it get the power from? What types of cams are we using? Are they the same or different from last year? They are new cams. They're X2s instead of X1s, and I'll explain the difference a little bit later on in the video. Just know that it makes things easier to adjust, and it also adds some smoothness to the draw. It comes in draw weight ranges from 50 to 100 pounds. So it's like 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70, 80, 90, or 100. So it goes way up there, hence the name Dangerous Game. If you want to go to Africa and hunt some really, really large animals, you might want that 100-pound model and sling a 750 to 1,000 grain arrow. And this is the thing to do it. And knowing that the riser is strong enough, so I only have 80-pound limbs on here right now, but knowing that this riser and this build is strong enough to withstand having 100-pound limbs on there really gives me a lot of assurance that this riser is never going to snap under the forces that I'm applying to it with only 80 pounds, 70 pounds, whatever I have it set to. Here's the thing that everybody likes about APA, is the speeds, right? So what is the IBO of this? An IBO, some people hate it because they say not very many people have 30-inch draw lengths. Not many people are going to be shooting a 5 grain per pound arrow, which I kind of agree with, but it's the standard that we have to go with, because until there's a new metric that we can compare things to, I'm going to go IBO. The claimed IBO for this bow is 363 feet per second. I know it says 365 on the website, but it's 363 feet per second. We will be testing the IBOs for ourselves. So what was APA's goal when designing this bow? So what did they have in their head? What questions were they trying to answer? What goals were they trying to achieve? So APA wanted to design a hunting bow with the highest levels of kinetic energy, as well as stability and efficiency. So we talked about the draw weight ranges. We're going to talk about the draw length ranges, which it goes anywhere from 24 inches all the way out to 30-inch draw. So there's quite a bit of variance there. And if you are a guy who has a shorter draw, 24 inches, 25 inches, 26, whatever, you can pull this back and you still get good speed. So with, say, I'm shooting 30-inch draw, right? And I drop to 29-inch draw. I'm only going to lose 10 feet per second per inch of draw length that I'm losing. And that stays pretty consistent from 30 inches all the way down to 24 inches. Obviously it's going to vary slightly, but as a general rule, every inch that you decrease in draw length, you're losing 10 feet per second. The draw length can be modified by half-inch increments. I'll show you how you do that. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the characteristics that make APA's bows unique. Some of these are not specific to just the King COBRA. It's not like you have to spend a bunch of money or buy a specific one to get the really cool features. First thing is the carry handle. So you can see right here. So the carry handle is in front of your hand, and you can see how it has grooved out little handle spots for your fingers. So if you're walking through the woods, you just carry it like this. So the carry handle is actually one of my favorite things, just the maneuverability of it. We still have a couple of these features. We still have the fang riser. So this riser right here, any tree branch, any tree limb, you don't need anything special. You can just hang it like that, just like that. Now, if you look very carefully, right in here, you can see a machined out with threads. There's a hole with threads in it, right? So what the heck is that for? That's actually for a GoPro attachment. So you can screw the GoPro attachment in and then put your GoPro right on the front right here. So that's really cool. We're gonna talk about APA's tool center. You see here, that's a broadhead sharpener or a knife sharpener. So on the go, if your broadhead gets dinged up, you miss a shot or something, and you wanna sharpen it, you got these carbide blade sharpeners. You have a knock tool right here. So you can put the back of your arrow in. Let me show you. So you can take the back of your arrow and you can stick it in right here. I like the black vein on these arrows. My black vein is my top vein. So knock indexing tool, cool. This next one right here that looks like a crazy bunch of stars. Let me put my hand behind it so you can see it. You see all these different shapes. So that's going to accommodate all the different types of fixed blade broadheads. So you could see how there could be a 3, or you could see how there could be a 4 blade or a 3 blade. They have all the different variations of fixed blade broadheads, so that if your broadhead is screwed on there real tight and maybe it's just sticking a little bit, you can stick it right in here, apply some twist, and this thing will help you out to get your broadhead on tighter or off when it's tight. So you see these buttons right here on the top or the bottom right there. Those are called your torque-free limb anchors. And right now I have a QAD HTX on here, which is a cable-driven rest, but if I had a limb-driven rest, that torque-free limb anchor would come in really handy. Now, the next thing is the integrated bow winch. That is one of my favorite features. So I still have from last year 2025's Black Mamba Pro, and I've this season during deer season I've been saddle hunting. Having the option to put a winch inside the riser of your bow and to use that and to know that's going to be there instead of carrying around an extra paracord or something like that is a game changer. I do not have the winch put in here, but it would go right here. It's just a spool of line, and then this little dot at the top, you'd have a loop that comes out of there. So whenever you're gonna climb a tree, you just pull some of this out and then you hook it onto yourself, climb up the tree. When you're ready to pull your bow up, after you have everything kind of ready and organized, you just pull that rope up and then you hold your bow in place. And I kind of hold it like this. I'll use one of these little stabilizers. And you want to keep a little bit of tension on that line. And it's almost like a fishing reel. You're just gonna reel it in, reel. I've counted how many reels or how many loop arounds it takes to fully reel it in. It can go out about 20 feet. It takes 80 reels. I've counted multiple times just out of boredom. But that thing's a game changer. If you were thinking about buying one and you were thinking, oh, I'm just gonna tie my paracord like I always do, get the winch. The winch is one of my favorite things. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna talk about is the cam lock technology. So what the heck is that? So you have your cams, and if you look, you remember we said that these are X2 cams instead of X1s. And one of the benefits of that is, if you can see all these little circles? About half of them are on this side and about half are on this side. That's one of the differences between the X2 and X1. X1 had more on one side, so if you wanted to jack with the cables or the strings, one would be harder than the other. On this, because it's balanced and you have holes on this side and this side, it's going to be equally difficult. Not saying that it's difficult, but it will be of equal difficulty. You won't have to try any harder to alter cables or the string. So what you're gonna do with this is you come over to the front of the bow. It's right near where the tool center is, right? So we showed you that. You see the silver rod. So on this side, there's a lock for that. You're just gonna turn that counterclockwise just a little bit. You see that black knob? I just turned it. And what that's gonna allow you to do is remove this silver piece. You can just pull it right out the front. And this is the key to the cam lock technology. And let me show you how. So once you have the pin all that's left to do is to go over to where the holes are in the cams, right? So I've got about 3 on that side and 3 on that side. Now say I want to jack with my cables. So you're gonna grab the cable, grab the riser with your left hand, and say I want to jack with the cable on this side. I'm gonna pull real hard. I'm gonna fit that little metal piece, I like to call it the spine, into your cam. So now it cannot rotate back to the position that it was originally. You see how slacked this line is? That's our cable. So I could completely undo the cable, put twists, undo twists, on the go, and then when I'm done, you just hook the cable back onto where it was, grab the cable again, grab your riser, apply a little bit of force, and take that piece out. And then you got your spine again. Remember, I like to call the silver piece the spine. So that's for changing cables. Now say you want to change the string. Pulling the string to the riser and putting the little lock pin in there, you can do that, but it's not going to give you as much slack. There's just not enough room for you to pull it far enough. So what I like to do is hold the carry handle. I'll scoot back a little bit. Put your foot right over where the D-loop is, right where all the serving and everything is. And then just pull up a little bit, and then you can put your lock in. Now, you see how loose this is? That's the cam lock technology. And now say I've taken my string off, I've done what I need to. I'm just gonna do the exact same thing to remove. Pull up, pull your pin out, and you're good to go. Now, some of you guys are gonna freak out that I just put my foot on the string. It already has serving. The D-loop is tough. It gets changed out every once in a while. I would not advise to do this on the street or anything like that, or a concrete surface or anything that has any roughness to it. You could definitely do it on the grass, no harm, no foul. You can do it on ceramic floors, cement floors, as long as they're polished cement. But be careful about where you do it, because you don't want to screw your string up. That's a whole other mess, and then you're spending 150, 200 bucks to fix your strings. But that's your cam lock technology. We showed you for the cables, we showed you for the strings. Super handy. And then when you're done with this piece, when you've changed your cables and strings and you're happy with how they are now, all you have to do is go back to that front place, look for where that black lever is, go to the opposite, go to the front part of your riser, you can feed it right in. I like to leave a little bit of it out, and then that's where you tighten it down, okay? But that's where it goes. This is one of the most important pieces to the cam lock technology, and for this next part that we're about to jump into, setting up your arrow rest, your D-loop, all of the above. It makes that all way easier. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is the center shot indicator. So for that, we're also going to be using the piece that I call the spine, that silver rod. So I'm going to unlock it on my side. Now I'm going to push it through, pull it out the front. And now if you see where the burger holes are, I'm going to take this piece, the same piece, and if you look closely, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but it says, hang on, right there maybe. There's a vertical line right here, which tells you right smack middle where your arrow should run through after you have your rest on. And it says riser, APA riser right here, and it has an arrow pointing to the right. Okay, so that tells you which end goes into the riser. Right where the burger holes are, there's another hole right above that. And you hear that? It only goes in a little bit. But that is a super helpful tool. You see that vertical line, you can see that pretty clearly, right? So when you're looking and you have your arrow running through your rest, that vertical line should run right through the center of your arrow. So you see how my arrow's right underneath that, dead center? And if I look this way, right underneath that dead center, I'm trying to look through the string. but it's dead center. That's the purpose of it, is it's called the center shot. So if you look right here, behind these arrows, let me drop the rest. You have the two burger holes, right? And then you see the machine lines, the horizontal line here and the horizontal line here. That's right where your arrow should run through. So your arrow should run right through the burger holes, parallel to both of those lines. I'm kind of at an angle, but it should be almost directly under the center shot piece, and it should run and cover both burger holes. Okay? We already talked about the X2 cams. Now, another addition is that you have a needle on what's called your RDS now. Now, RDS, I know it's an acronym, it's like, what the heck does that mean? All it means is rotating draw stop. So that's what helps you determine your draw length on these bows. So for me, I'm a 30-inch draw. 30 inches on these bows corresponds to the letter O. So on the RDS, I'm gonna find the letter O. Now it used to be, you just lined up the axle with your letter, and then that's kind of how you set it. So it wasn't super precise, but now you have a needle. Let me show you. I'm gonna show you this and you're gonna be like, wait, what the heck? It's not set on O. I'll explain why it's set on a different letter than that in just a second. But just pretend like the letter it's set on is O. So if you look at your cam, you see all the letters. It goes A through S. And then you can see O, and I'm not on O, but pretend that the Q that I am on is O. I'll explain why it's on Q instead of O. But you see the little needle right above the Q? Let me see if I can point to it. Right here, you see that needle? So it used to be, last year's model, you would line up this axle to wherever that pin was, and then you'd try to get the letter, so in this case Q, you'd try to get that Q directly in line with the axle bolt and the tightening Allen. But now you have that needle, so you can get it like pinpoint accurate, so it's right on Q. That was unintended, but it was a good pun, right on Q. Okay, so I told you I'd explain why I have it set to Q instead of O. So originally I set it to O, which is 30 inches draw, and the draw, the accuracy of the draw lengths with the 2026 model bows is much more accurate. So previously they were about a ½ inch long. Now they're only within a 1/16 of the actual draw length. So super, super close. You can watch APA's videos on their channel. I'll link the videos down below. I think they have 2 out about the King Cobra now, but they're both cool, and I'll put those in the description in case you guys want to watch those as well. Now the reason that I have mine set to Q instead of O, it's a very minor difference, but it adds a bit of a valley. So instead of just pulling back and being stuck, and it's 80% let off, but I promise it feels like more than that. It's like you cannot relax. You got to be pulling pretty good the whole time, or it's going to want to kind of feel like it wants to lurch forward on you. And that can be a timing issue. If you haven't timed your bow, you have to kind of time these bows in a different way. This one in particular, I was able to use a draw board for the majority of it. I did mess with the micro adjust, which we'll cover here in just a second. I'll show you how that works as well. Having it on O would be a perfect 30-inch draw. I moved it to Q so that I pulled just barely, like just a little farther back, but I get to relax. It's more of a valley. I can hold the shot for much longer. I can kind of not be super tense and shaky. So if you're having the issue of you're feeling like that back wall just wants to lurch forward on you, one, check your timing for these bows. The best way to check it is not always a draw board. So a draw board, you draw it back, you see where, if it's a cable stop or a limb stop, you want your top and bottom to hit at the same time, or you want your top to hit barely before your bottom, right? On these bows, sure, that's a great starting point, is to use a draw board, draw it back. But the thing that I like to do personally is pick it up, draw it back, hold it at the back wall, and let off just barely, just barely, just barely. And I want to see, just kind of like look at the middle of your bow and kind of blur your vision and just let off a little, and make sure your top and bottom cams are firing at the same times. Because sometimes these are speed bows and they're incredibly speedy bows. So if it's not twitching at the exact same time, you'll know what I mean. I can show you. I'll do it when we're down range. I'm not going to do it right here because I'm facing a wall, but when we step down here, I'll show you how it kind of wants to, you can watch the top and bottom twitch at the exact same time, and that's the best way to tell with these bows. Okay, just like last year with the Black Mamba Pro, they have twin flex limbs. So if you look at the actual thickness of the limb, the thickest part is right here, right where your no torque limb anchor is for limb driven rests. That's going to be the thickest part. And then it thins out to the left and it thins out to the right. And then you've got kind of a fork right up here. So twin flex is because you have two areas of thinning, and then you have the slightly thicker part right here where kind of where the Y of the intersection of the Y of the wishbone would be. That's kind of like your thickest part of the limb. But that twin flex limb makes for incredible efficiency, and it's very quiet, and you'll see as soon as we start shooting this thing, you're going to be really surprised. So what is different about the riser? I already talked earlier about the fact that this riser is beefed up in order to be able to withstand 100-pound limbs and firing bolts of 750 grains, 1,000 grains, crazy weights, right? Crazy weights, crazy kinetic energy. The fact that this thing stays together really speaks to the quality of this riser and to the strength. So this riser, oddly enough, is lighter, but it's stronger than last year's. Another one of the key features that I really want to highlight are the 3 Pro Connects, right? So let me step towards you so I can show you. So right under where our fang would be, you see this little hole right here? And then even on the opposite side, they have the same hole. So there's a sling that you can order. It's just a carry sling. So it attaches here, and then down at the bottom, right here. So right where your little knobby stabilizer would be, there's a sling that attaches right there. It attaches here. One of the things that's important is that it attaches from both sides. So if your side is mounted, it can be lefty or righty, because you know how like you would carry it and you wouldn't want your sight bumping against you the whole time you're carrying it. That's why it's left or right. So that's the first Pro Connect, is the sling. The second Pro Connect has to do with mounting a sight. So I have a cheap sight on here. It's just a CBE sight that I got from Cabela's. But if you look on here, you see how it's kind of recessed in right here where my finger is, and then this forward part right here. Doesn't it look like a dovetail would fit into that just absolutely perfectly? So that is the intended purpose of that, is so that dovetail sights, you can slide them in and they'd fit right against the riser so that everything is super streamlined, in line. If you're walking through branches or bushes, the wider that your bow is, the more crap that's sticking off the sides, the more annoying of a time that you're gonna have. And it might bump your sight, it might screw up your hunt in a way that is unforeseen. So having everything in line is not just good for stability while shooting and having everything balanced so that you don't get as much wobble or pin movement. It's also great for hunting situations. Keeping everything streamlined so you can be skinny and your bow can be skinny. You can fit through. Okay, this one's really cool. This is the third Pro Connect. Remember, we said there's 3. So just a reminder, first one, sling. Second one, dovetail mount, and it still accepts old school mounts and any type of quiver or quick disconnect. It pretty much accepts everything, but the dovetail is the major highlight for that because they wanted it in line and stream. Now the third is having your stabilizers. You have Pro Connect stabilizers. So if you look at this little small, you actually have two, but I only have one stabilizer on here. And it's just this little nubby thing. So this little nub, you see the silver piece right here? I can show you on this side too. So there's a screw on this side which locks the silver piece in right here. If you undid this screw all the way, then your Pro Connect would be free to use. So most people aren't going to take the little nub off. That's why that screw's there, just to hold it in permanently. But if you did take the screw off, you would be able to unscrew this counterclockwise and slide it out towards the camera. So this Pro Connect would slide out towards the camera. Normally, you have to buy an adapter. So I have, for example, I have the Hitman stabilizer kit. That cost a good deal of money. It was like 200 something bucks. I bought it a year or two ago. But it has its own specific threaded in adapter piece so that you can then add the Pro Connect. So the Pro Connect being built into the riser in this way is saving you a lot of money. Now this one, you can even see the threads. So this is the second Pro Connect. So you can take any stabilizer, screw it into there, and then it would automatically be Pro Connect. So you could unscrew it to the left just a little bit, and then pull this piece out this way, and this little silver cylinder would slide straight out, just like any of the Pro Connects that you normally have to pay a lot of money for. So again, thank you APA, they gave you two. If you'll look at this one as well, so we talked about this Pro Connect, you could screw in any stabilizer, and then when you unscrew it to the left, you could then pull it out. You would not be able to do that until you remove this screw. So this screw is holding this stabilizer in place so that it acts like just a normal riser where you'd screw your stabilizers in. If you just want to be able to screw them in, screw them out, not have to worry about the Pro Connect, then just leave that screw in the side right here. If you want, what some people do, they'll unscrew the screw on this side and on this side, and then they'll swap the shorter stubby stabilizer and they'll put that here, and then they'll put the longer stabilizer down here. But it's just mix and match to your fancy pretty much. It's very easy for a company to claim, hey, we just came out with a new bow, it's way faster, it's way more stable, it shoots way more accurately at distance, but it's hard to back up the claim, right? And to give firm reasoning as to why it works the way it works and why it's better than last year, why it's better than other products. There's a term that's been thrown around by a couple of companies. I first saw it maybe a couple months ago from like an Australian guy who was talking about setting up his bow. And it's called, so we have this static brace height, and that was 5 3/8. So it's, and again online it's gonna say 5 5/16, but it's 5 3/8. It's the static brace height. So that's measured from right here where the little hook is. So right here to where your string is. Now if I pull this back all the way, the cams are gonna rotate out. The cams are gonna rotate out, right? Now the place where the string comes off of the cam, so it's gonna be angled like this, but the cam is gonna be kind of back here where my hand is. So the place where the string comes off the cam would be about right here where I'm pointing. It'd be about right where my finger is. And the same on the bottom. So if you draw a line from where my pointer finger is right here, or index finger is right here, down to where my index finger would be on the bottom cam, down to where my index finger would be on the bottom cam. So this would twist out, and then where does the string come off the cam? It would be about right there. So you draw a vertical line in between those two, and then you measure, so that would be about right here, right? And then you'd measure the distance from where my hand is to the back of that handle. And that is called your dynamic brace height. And why is that important? Why should we care about just a new term that's being thrown around? This one actually makes a lot of sense. So dynamic brace height is the greater that is at full draw, the harder it's going to be So say you had a stabilizer sticking off the front of this thing. The greater my dynamic brace height, the harder it's going to be for somebody to push my stabilizer on the front of my bow to the left or to the right, which in turn also means the harder it's going to be for me to torque it to the right or to the left. So a high dynamic brace height, the dynamic brace height on this bow is 7 inches, which when compared to its static brace height of 5 3/8 is very impressive. But that's why this bow, the shootability and the accuracy goes up. It's because you physically cannot torque the bow with the same, you can't torque the bow the same amount using the same amount of force. You'd have to apply more force to torque the bow the same amount as last year's, right? So it's like untorquable. Yeah, for all you short guys out there, this could be a great choice if you want to take down some bigger game, or you just want to know that if you're shooting a deer, a hog, whatever, you're getting full pass through regardless of if you shoot that hog in the shield, if you're shooting scapula, whatever, you're going to get pass throughs. So the engineering team at APA did an experiment maybe a week ago, and they posted it on their YouTube channel. I will also have that linked in the description if you want to go watch that. And it's this big guy pulling back a 100-pound bow and shooting a 500 grain arrow for the IBO speed, and then shooting a 750 grain arrow for the IBO speed. Now that's with 100-pound limbs, 30-inch draw, and I did the calculations on the kinetic energy just to see, and I did it in foot-pounds and in joules. So if you're from UK or America, it'll work for you. So yeah, 100 pounds, arrow weights were 500 grains, 750 grains, like I said. The kinetic energy was 192 joules with the 500 grain arrow, which in foot-pounds, to get from joules to foot-pounds, all you have to do is multiply by 0.737, that's the conversion factor. So it's foot-pounds is always going to be less than joules. But after you do that multiplication, you get 141 foot-pounds. So 192 joules, 141 foot-pounds with the 500 grain arrow. Now, what happened with the 750 grain arrow? You get, it's ridiculous. It shot 297 feet per second, so still almost 300 feet per second with a 750 grain arrow, absolutely ridiculous. Kinetic energy was 198 joules, and the foot-pounds, remember, multiply by 0.737, you get 145.9 foot-pounds. Yeah, so the difference in the 750 grain arrow and the 500 grain arrow, it's no surprise. The 750 grain arrow weighs more, so it's on the string for longer. You still have the same length power stroke, but it's going to be on the string longer, so it absorbs more of that string's energy. So you get 145 foot-pounds instead of 141 foot-pounds. Both of those are astronomical numbers, but the slight difference comes from that heavier arrow staying on the string just a little bit longer. Now, if you guys don't like math and you're bored by that kind of stuff, I hope you fast forwarded to this point. Hopefully you guys are still with me right here. One other difference between the King Cobra, the 2026 King Cobra, and I think they did it also on the 2025, but it's different from the Black Mamba that I have. I have a 2025 Black Mamba, which has a dampener right here and right here. Now, with how fast these bows are, the limbs vibrate, and sometimes the adhesiveness kind of decreases, and those will pop off there. I've had that happen. So one thing that I really like that King Cobra has done, King Cobra DGX, the dampener is right here. It's in this limb pocket. It can't go anywhere. So it's already supported, which I think is like really, really cool. And you got another one here on the bottom. That's your dampener. Normally it'd be out here. The draw cycle is way smoother than the X1 cams, like for sure. So that double twitch is what you're looking for. Even after you put it in a draw board, sometimes you'll draw it back and one will be slightly ahead of the other. It's the best way that I have found with the Black Mamba. It's also the way that the engineers at APA tell you to do it. They also sell a drawboard adapter if you don't want to do just get it pretty much 99% of the way there on a drawboard and then do the twitch method to fine tune it. They do sell a drawboard adapter, which is just a piece. It really is just like a little Lego piece that fits on your handle. And it makes the contact point a little bit lower to try to mimic where a human hand would actually, like the pressure point of a human hand would be, so that when you put it in the drawboard, it's supposed to be more accurate. I tried using that, and I tried with and without, and I got the exact same read on the RDS when it would contact the cable. I had the exact same gap or difference between top and bottom using the adapter and not using the adapter. So for me, the adapter didn't really do anything. If you think about it, that's a good thing because you don't have to purchase it to get your bow perfectly timed. Yeah, drawboard 99%, and then that last percent, just do the twitch method. You can record yourself. You get used to the way it feels, and if it's out of time, when it lurches forwards, it's a bigger lurch. Like you won't be able to just kind of move it right there like a little violin. It'll want to move your arm all the way back. But if you're close to it being perfectly in time, you can kind of sit there and and you can feel that back wall is cement. It just snaps right into that back wall. It's so nice. If it feels like you've drawn all the way back and it still wants to lurch on you, first, check your timing. Second, you might need to move that RDS a few letters over so that you get more of a valley. Because when that cam rotates, you get more leverage, more of a valley. Okay, there's one more thing I gotta show you. See on the left it says lock, and then at the bottom it says adjust, and it's your microtune. So that's your microtune for your cable, right? And it's for the bottom cable, the cable that goes to your bottom cam. So this one, you see these two little rollers? This roller doesn't move. You see that? This whole thing, the micro adjust, has to do with this bottom roller. And the bottom roller contacts that cable, and that cable goes all the way down to your bottom cam. Okay, so remember this was the lock, this is the adjust. This is fixed, so this roller has to do with the cable that goes and hooks in to your top cam. So you see the cable right there, and follow the left one all the way up, and it doesn't split into a yoke, it's the cable on the left. So on this one, this circle has to do with the bottom cam. And if you follow that cable, follow, you see our COBRA DGX tied in right there under the serving. Follow it all the way down. Doesn't split into a yoke, it's a single cable. So that's the adjustment for timing. But you see how this bar right here is relatively parallel to this bar. That's how you want it to start. And then you try to do your timing. You're gonna get really, really close, but say you get to a place where there's like a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 inch gap. Probably a 1/16 of an inch more likely, because you can normally get really, really close by twisting the cables. An ideal circumstance is that your bottom cam is hitting the cable stop about a 1/16 of an inch ahead of your top cam. So if your top cam has a 1/16 of an inch gap, take it off the drawboard, right? And then I want you to unlock this and do a couple clockwise rotations of your adjustment knob on your micro adjust. Because when you do those clockwise rotations, you're effectively pulling harder on your cable. So the cable that was touching, remember the bottom's touching, the top is not touching. So we want, and the only one we can alter, we can't alter the top. So the top is not not touching by only a 1/16 of an inch. This one is touching, but just barely. So that's when you use your micro adjust, and you tighten, 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 make the bottom one a 1/16 of an inch gap as well, and then you do a couple more clicks on your drawboard, click, click, and just pull a little bit farther, and then they both hit the cable stops at the same time. That's how I would advise doing it. Even after getting everything perfect, I would still do the twitch test, which is what I showed you down there. So you draw it all the way back, and then just kind of like let it go a little. Like you see how right there, they're both wanting to fire at the same time. Okay, so now that I've shown you guys that twitch, the I want to point something else out. I got the bow shipped to me, and they have a little card on there that says who did the work on it, what the draw weight was, and it said 81 pounds, and then what the IBO speed was, which was 363. And then I took my scales and I pulled it back, and it said 86, 87 pounds for both of these. So I was thinking, oh, since both of these read within 2 to 3 pounds of each other, these must be right and the other scale must be wrong. I called APA. I mentioned the issue to them that I was having, the discrepancy in draw weight, and they said, we have a really high-end scale, so you might want to try a different scale besides the 2 that you're using currently. So I'm at the pro shop now, and they had an analog scale downstairs. It doesn't get any better than an analog scale. And you can see that when I put that on there and I pushed down, the highest it would go to was 80. Okay, you see how it only went to 80 pounds? That's the maximum. So this is an analog scale, so it's gonna be way more accurate than my digital scales. So I have it right at 80 pounds. I'm gonna do it one more time so you can see it. If I push any more than that, it starts to decrease in weight because I've gotten over that hump of the highest point in the draw weight. And if I read it off these two, it reads about 86, 87. But the true draw weight right now is exactly 80 pounds because I'll push, 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 and it'll go up in poundage as I'm pushing, and then right when it hits that peak point, starts decreasing in weight. But I didn't want to push it all the way over into the valley and then have to deal with it kind of lurching back up when I relaxed. Long story short, APA had it right, the draw weight right from the get-go. I screwed it up with these two. These are just, I'll just know that these get you close, but it's not perfect. But now that we have this bow at 80 pounds, let's get some arrow weights. I'm going to be shooting about a 430 arrow, and then I'm going to be shooting for IBO speed. I do have a peep on here now, so it's going to be a little slower than IBO speed, but I am going to shoot a 400 grain arrow through there, so it's 5 grains per pound. That's the only arrow in this quiver that has feathers. Okay, so that's our 400 grain. Let's check and make sure that our weights on our other ones are correct. Here's the scale and grains. We're gonna have to zero it. Zero tear. Okay, and then let's take any of these, put them on there. 432 with the pink and black veins. And like I said, the one with the feathers, that's the only one we have that's 400. Let's see. So this is one with the feathers. Putting that down on there. 400.2. That's about as close as you can get. Now it's time to do some shooting. Just for demonstration of what I was talking about, you can see that's 0 right now. I put an arrow in here, so just in case that hook comes out, never pull your bow back, even with a draw weight tester without an arrow in there, just in case it decides to snap on you. So we've got it at 0 pounds. This thing is it'll probably say 85, 86, something like that. Okay, so 84.46, that's about 85 pounds. Let me try the one from Cupid Archery. I'm sorry, I can't tell you the name of the other one. Maybe just stay away from the white ones, because this one is also incorrect. Yeah, this one says 85 point, let me see, right there you can see it. 85.86, so that's like 86 pounds. So quite the discrepancy between digital scales and analog scales. I would always trust analog over digital. So the fact that APA got 81 when this was reading 86, and this is reading 86, and the scale downstairs that's analog is now reading 80, I think we're right at 80. I want the IBO to be last because that's kind of the coolest, most exciting part. The IBO speed for this bow is supposed to be 363 feet per second, which is absolutely monstrous. I mentioned it earlier, but we do have a peep in there that's gonna slow things down a little bit. If we get close to 363, I'm just gonna assume that I'll leave the peep in there and I'll just, well, I don't know. We might end up taking it out anyways. Let's take our first shot with a 432 grain arrow. I have a 30-inch draw. Let's see. Tell you what, smooth as can be. Okay, that's 342. Let's see, a 400 grain arrow. Out of an 80-pound bow, 30 inches draw, that's 5 pounds per, or 5 grains per pound. So we're looking at 400. This is for IBO pretty much, except for the fact that we have the peep on the string. And for, you wouldn't even have a D loop on the string if you're doing IBO. They literally minimize all that because everything is like, adds another foot per second or another 5 feet per second. But let's see what we get. I'm gonna bet 363 is with a naked string. I'd probably say 357, somewhere around in there, with a 400. The draw, I mean, it's heavy, but it draws really smooth. Those X2 cams are doing work. $354. $354 again. We've gotten 2 of those in a row. 354, 354 with a peep on there. I think we gotta take the peep out and see how much of a difference the peep is making, and then come and shoot it again. 354 is smoking fast, but I want to see without the peep what we get. So I'm gonna go downstairs, I'll take the peep out, and then we'll come back up, do one more test. So as you can see, took the peep out, marked the spot with white out, put a little thread to mark the middle point so I can put the peep right back in when I'm done. Let's do the 432 arrow first, and then we'll do the 400. $348. Crazy. Okay, it's the moment of truth. 400 grains, 80-pound bow, 5 grains per pound, 30-inch draw. See what she's got. This is no peep. This is maxed out. This is probably as close to IBO as I'm gonna get because I'm not taking the D loop off. $360. Holy man. Can you guys see that? You see that 360? 360 feet per second. Are you kidding me? $360 again. Boom. 360. Okay, so IBO speed 360. That is by far the fastest that I've ever seen through this chrono. This is at 80 pounds. The card that came with this bow said it was tested at 81 pounds for IBO and that it shot 363. So maybe that extra pound just adds 3 feet per second or something like that. I could definitely see that being the difference, but I got 360 and the claimed is 363. That's a very, very honest company if you ask me. Even though this is 80 pounds and it's an APA bow and it's meant to kill freaking dangerous game, extreme dangerous game, right? You would imagine that the draw cycle would be absolutely horrific, but that is absolutely not the case. Even the X1 cams, which are the previous generation, they were pretty kind to you as well. It's just at the back wall, it's gonna feel like more weight than you're used to. If you're used to shooting 90% let off, 85% let off, you're gonna feel the difference between 80% let off. And an 80% let off on an APA bow, definitely, just being honest here, it feels different and it feels heavier than an 80% let off on, say, a Matthews bow. I don't really mind the extra weight. It kind of gets everything, it almost forces you to take your shot a little sooner. But yeah, I think this thing is amazing. The fact that it can generate that much energy and that the company was so spot on and honest and straightforward, and they didn't try to kind of pull the shutters over your eyes or anything. Now, I don't think you could go wrong with getting one of these if you're planning on hunting dangerous game, if you just want to shoot a super fast bow, anything like that. This is the fastest bow I've ever personally shot, 360 feet per second. Holy cow, that's all I have to say. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to subscribe and drop a comment, drop a like. It really helps with the algorithm and sending it out to other people. As always, thank you so much to the Outhouse for hosting us and allowing us to do these tests so that everybody can see them. Can't thank you enough. If you're ever in the Central Texas area and you want a bow shop to go to or a pro shop or something, or you want to see the range, they have a really great range, and they also have like techno hunt and stuff like that. Be sure to stop by, and the guys are real nice and they'll set you up. That's all I got for you today. Always remember, live what you love.